Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching Serious Diaries, and I'm Shivam Kumar, your host. And today I'm going to tell you about something very interesting. The situation you are looking on the screen is actually a fright lever initiated by the white player, and black is actually in the tremendous pressure because there is a constant threat of this f7 square because bishop is lurking on this f7. After knight comes at g5, there is a knight to f7, and it's a fork on the queen and the rook at the same time. Of course, knight won't come at g5 unprotected. First of all, he will go with a pawn to d3, whatever d4. d4 can be also the move. If black goes knight to f3, then f6, then it can be devastated because after knight at f6, knight can simply jump at g5. So it is quite tremendous pressure that black is currently getting from white, and black is very annoyed with this. In this video, I'm going to show you that how can you counter this trap. Actually, I have made three videos. First video was the original fight lever, and second video was the counter of the fight lever, which we can say part one. Second video was a part two, another variation, and in this third video, we are going to discuss about the best move that which white can play if you go for a counter. Recently, there was a match between Gukesh and Magnus, and in that match, Magnus actually shows us the best move to counter this fright lever. And in that move, there were actually three moves that White can play. First move was bishop can take the pawn at g5. Second move was that the pawn can take the knight at c6. And the third and the best move in this scenario was very simple, but it was the best move that bishop drops back at the f1 square. We have covered two variations in my two videos, and now we are going to cover the third variation and the last variation in this third video. So let's get started. The title of this video is that how to counter the fright lever in Magnus style with confidence and brilliance. So let's get started. As you can see that white has developed a very good pieces. We have bishop, wait a minute. We have bishop as lurking at f7. We have knight also this square, so fright lever, you know. So black actually go with a knight to f6, and this gives white a chance to play knight to g5, and now there is a threat to f7. So what can black do? Black goes with the pawn to d5. Now pawn takes at d5, and if you go with the knight to d5, let's say if knight takes on d5, it indeed blocked the path of bishop, and now there is no attack on the f7. But actually, there is an original fright lever. Yes, original fright lever starts with the knight sacrifice. We have king takes knight. We have queen at this square. Now king comes at this square. We have knight at this square. And now, guys, you can see. Wait a minute. What just happened? I didn't make any kind of squares. So I didn't make any arrows. So now, guys, you can see that everything is just focused on this square, and there is nothing that black can do. White is completely winning at this situation. Moreover, you can go for a long castle anytime. If black goes with a knight at this square to protect this knight, then simply go with this maneuver. Pawn takes. We have bishop at this square, pinning this knight to the queen, and now this knight is actually paralyzed. So there is nothing that white can do. If he actually go with a pawn to c6, simply go for a short castle here, and there is this maneuver on the board. And now, if black simply becomes greedy and take our knight here, simply go with this maneuver, and now king has to move away. So what can you do? Simply go and take this knight. Pawn takes bishop. We have rook takes at this square. Now knight can't move because this queen is hanging. So rook has to move away. Let's say rook moves at c7 because he wants to protect his queen too. And now there is this maneuver on the board. So king again has to move away, and now you can simply take the queen. So it is actually good for you. And this is the original fried liver. So I don't think you want to go that way. I don't think you want to get your liver fried. So that's why you shouldn't move your knight at the d5. What is the best counter is that the pawn to b5, which Magnus shows us. So when you go with a pawn to b5, there are actually three things that white can do. He can simply take this pawn, or he can simply take this knight. Let's say, let's just understand a short variation because I have covered full and explained variation in my previous videos. I will just give link in the description. But I have to discuss, guys, for those who are just watching this video for the first time, and for those who are watching me for the first time. For those, I'm just explaining a short version what will happen. Let's say bishop takes pawn. We have a queen at this square. Now this g2 is under attack, and this bishop is hanging too. So now bishop takes at this square. We have this maneuver on the board, and now what can white do? White can simply go for a castle because this is a basic principle in the chess. Black can go with a bishop to b7 and threatening a checkmate in one. So what can white again do here? White can just go with a pawn to f3, and at this point of time, you can just go with the s6, hitting this knight. So knight actually don't have a good square. Knight can go with this maneuver on the board, and what can black do else here? Situation, black can simply trap this knight. Yes, black can go with a pawn to g5, and you can see that this knight is going to be trapped. So white goes with a queen to e2 because now attacking this pawn, and then they will be check on the king too. So black goes with the queenside castle, and it's quite. And now white takes this pawn at this square. Now we have bishop to c5 check. Now king moves away, and we have pawn to g4. Now pawn takes pawn at this square, and now we have rook to g8. Now this pawn is under threat. So let's say it doesn't matter whatever black white does. White can go with the pawn to c5, but still we are completely winning the match. And it's actually rook to g4, and let's say white goes pawn to d3 to open up the bishop's diagonal, then still it is not enough because you can see the next move is actually a checkmate. So white has to do multiple things in this scenario, and white is can do nothing in this situation. So the best move for the white in this situation is just to go back to with a queen, and if it happens you can simply go with a rook to g8. Now guys, if rook takes at this square, you can simply take the rook, so it won't happen like this. So what can white do? White can simply go with a knight to e4 because there it will just block the diagonal of the queen. So it is actually good maneuver. But still you don't have to flinch out. You can simply take this knight any time you want because then queen can't take this, of course. So it is nothing to worry about. And yes, you are completely winning this situation. So this will be a devastating, and it will be a devastating attack if bishop takes this pawn. Now the next thing that white can actually do is just to take your knight here, then you can simply take his bishop, and then white can simply go with a queen to e2, and after that you can simply go with a queen to d5, and there is a threat to this square g2 and now your knight also. And after that white just castle to protect his g2 pawn, and then you can go for a bishop to d6 and also preparing for a castle here. Knight comes at c3 attacking our queen, simply go and take this pawn at c6. We have pawn to d4 because in order to attack this pawn, but you don't have to worry about it guys, you can simply go with a bishop to b7, and now there is a threat to checkmate at this square. So we are completely good here. Now pawn comes at f3, we have a castle here, and then pawn takes, which is actually a 4, but it doesn't look like this guys because we have this much check. Now king moves away, and now we have rook at e8 square, and now it's a reverse pin. So we are completely good here. Now queen takes our pawn, we can simply recapture the pawn, and now bishop is attacking our rook here. So still we don't have to flinch, we just go with the f6, f5, and now guys, to protect this bishop, pawn comes at g3. And we simply sacrifice our rook. Now bishop takes our rook, and what can we do? Sacrifice our queen. Yes. Now rook takes queen. We have bishop takes our rook, not our rook, our opponent's rook, and it's actually a checkmate. In this kind of also, in this scenario also, black white can actually do multiple things, but I can't cover everything in this video because I have already covered it in previous video. So in this video we are going to discuss what will happen if bishop goes back. Yes, this is the main part of this video. Then how should black respond here? So let's just find out how should black respond here. At this point of time, first of all first thing you just have to understand that bishop can't go there, because even if bishop goes there, we have knight at this square. Now bishop is actually a trapped. I mean, not trade, but we can just trade the bishops off. If bishop goes at this square, we still have this maneuver on the board, and even if you just go with something else like this maneuver, then you can simply take it. Then we have queen at this square. And now, guys, you can see that everything is still the same. We have queen to d5, and now there is a threat to g2 and bishop to b7, which actually will end up in a checkmate. So, guys, you can see that these are the main lines of the attack, and everything will become the similar. So that's why this is actually not a good move, and that's why bishop goes back to the f1. Now at this point of time, if you take the pawn with the queen, yes, in all these cases we took the pawn with the queen at d5, but in this scenario this is not good because after you take the pawn with the queen, we have queen knight at this c3 square, and you can't go anywhere, because you just have to descend back, and it's a wastage of those move. You can't also attack this g2 pawn because it is defended by the bishop. So it's actually a wastage of this move. So you can't take this pawn with the queen. So what Carlsen does here is just to take this pawn with the knight, and also this knight is hanging here. So knight has to move away. But white is not flinching, guys. I mean, Gukesh is not flinching. I mean, Gukesh is not flinching. Gukesh goes with a bishop to b5 and actually attacking this knight and also taking the rook also. Wait a minute. And also threatening to take the rook also. So even if you take the knight, you are simply losing one knight and a rook too. So it is quite devastating, and black will simply lose the game. So that's why there are two things that black can do. Black can actually go with the bishop to d7, protecting this knight, but the most preferable option is bishop to b7, all protecting this knight also, and also taking control of this whole diagonal, so that even if queen comes at d5, there will be a threat to checkmate in one move if after king just castle. So that's why black goes with the bishop to b7, and it's quite good move. Now white goes d3 so that this bishop can protect this knight, and black goes bishop to e7 to one to attack the knight and also to prepare for a castle here because black has to castle. You know that this is a check lurking on this square. Now this analysis is not how actually the game went between Gukesh and Magnus Carlsen, because that game ended in a draw and Gukesh defended brilliantly in that match and against the Magnus attacks. So this video is just for you to know that the idea behind the insane move of b5, and I have already discussed two variations, and this is the third variation where we are discussing what will happen if bishop goes at the f1, which is the last variation of this system and this counter. And if you want to understand the main ideas behind b5 move perfectly and all, so you can just watch those two videos where I have discussed two variations, and this was the third variation which we are now discussing. So let's just back to the analysis. Now knight is under attack, so knight goes back to f3, and we have castle here. And now you can see that this square is actually under threat because after knight jump on d4, there will be attack on this knight too. So it is actually pretty harsh for white to handle. So that's why white takes on this knight. We have bishop takes bishop, and now knight takes this pawn, and our bishop is actually under attack. So guys, what do you think the best move for black is? It should black just go with a bishop to backside, but it is just a wasted of move. So black actually go with a bishop to b4, and it's a check to the king. So pawn comes at this square, and we have rook to e8, pinning the knight to the queen. Even if you take our bishop, we will simply take the knight, and it will be check to the king. And in the next move, we will simply take the pawn. So actually, we are good here. So that's why I mean black is good here. So that's why to defend against this maneuver, white goes for d4 in order to protect this knight here. And now bishop comes on the d6, attacking this knight here. Now white goes for castle, and we have bishop takes knight. Now pawn takes bishop, and we have rook takes pawn. Now it is actually good for black. Now since white is lacking development, so white goes with a knight to d2 because he just want to develop his pieces. And the best move in this scenario is just to place knight at f4, because you know that bishop's path is actually blocked by his own knight. And there is one more thing that I guess you have forgot, guys. Their knight is actually attacking on the g2 square, and where bishop is already looking at g2, so it is quite convenient for black to enter at g2 square. So that's why white goes for the pawn to f3, and now here comes the best move, which is actually to e2, giving a check to the king. So king moves away, and now, guys, here comes the actually the brilliant move. It's actually king to h4, and guys, have you spotted the winning move in this situation? It's a very good move through which you can just win by only one move, and it doesn't matter whatever white does. And moreover, there is one more move. I want to tell you that thing that if knight goes at g4, g3, then there will be a fork on the king and the rook at the same time, and white will simply lose the rook. So this very good move too. And white actually anticipated that move, and that's why white goes to the knight to e4, which guards this square, and also now queen can simply take this knight too, which is actually quite good. But guys, this was one move about which was the good in this point of time at g3. But there is one more move which is very good. So in this situation, can you guys find the best move in this scenario? It's actually a queen sacrifice, which is at h2. Now king has to take the queen at h2 because you can see king can't move at this square. Even if king moves at this square, queen will simply take the king. So king has to take at h2. And now, guys, the winning move here is rook to h5, and it's a checkmate. You can see, guys, that nothing can block this checkmate because these two squares are under our control, and this bishop is just for creating a tempo on this diagonal, and it worked perfectly. So that was the thing, guys. That's how you can just counter the fried liver in Magnus Carlsen style. And in this variation, we have discussed how you can play if your bishop. Wait a minute. Okay, yes, in this variation, we have discussed how you can play if your opponent goes back with the bishop to f1. then still you are winning. If your opponent goes bishop takes pawn, you can still win. If your opponent goes pawn takes knight, you can still win. If your opponent goes bishop takes back, you can still win the match. And that was the thing, guys. That's how you can counter the fight lever attack brilliantly and perfectly. So that was all, guys. That was all for today's. And you are watching Srinitha's Diaries, and I'm Shivam Kumar. And I will meet you in the next video in with the next basic and opening trap. I hope you have liked this video. So do comment, share, and subscribe the channel, please. And I will meet you in the next one. Till then, take care.